Hey everybody, thank you for listening to Filling in the Gaps. Be sure to check us out on our social media pages at Filling in the Gaps. From there you can get updates on show releases and anything special we may be doing. Sit back and enjoy the show. Should be a lot of fun.
All right, everybody, welcome out to another episode of Filling in the Gaps. My name is Rich, and I am from the great state of Ohio. And as always, I'm joined by a great friend from down in the biggest and baddest state of Texas, Cameron. Each week, the two of us take a random theme and a random scenario, both decided by the classic D20 roll, and we mash them together into something you can use to fill in the gaps on your next game night. Maybe the dice will have us going into a haunted mansion or a train car scenario. We don't know what's going to come of this brainstorming session, but we hope that whatever comes out of it, you guys can steal our ideas and use them on your next game night. Now, Cam, do we have any shout-outs or thank yous or anything going on this week?
We do. We have a big thank you. Our community continues to amaze me. Y'all are fantastic. Every single day, especially considering our schedules as of late, y'all have been absolutely incredible just in finding ways to try to help us or talk about the most recent episodes and just sort of sharing ideas with one another on the subreddit. It's been a lot of fun. I want a big thanks to Molly for helping out with setting up our Discord. You can actually go follow the Discord over at Filling in the Gaps. You can also find it through our subreddit. He did a post on the subreddit itself. Vacdorum, thank you very much for helping us out with some moderation on the subreddit as well, just cleaning things up and helping us with creating some consistent post. And guys like Dunn with that great idea on one of the posts for the episode and making the discussion thread this week. That was a lot of fun as well. So, guys, our community is fantastic. We are so thankful for you. We are so happy to be able to do this every week because we find just an immense amount of joy in doing it. And I can't wait till schedule slows down so I can put more time and effort into it because y'all put just so much into us and it just makes me really, really happy. So
we love y'all so much.
Yeah, y'all are so sweet.
So sweet. And speaking of things that are fun, I want to give a shout out to a friend of mine, Nico. Nico is a friend of mine from up in here. He's DMing a session, and he's having me come in as a guest. I love Nico. I love how he DMs, so I'm looking forward to being a barbarian in his setting. Never been a barbarian before, so we'll see how it goes.
You've never been a barbarian, huh?
Never been a barbarian.
What's your name going to be?
Kook Lane.
Kook Lane?
Kook Lane. It's like Nico's taking inspiration from like Irish and Scottish folklore. So I'm thinking like, imagine like a guy with like a kilt, but he's got like an eagle tattoo on his chest because he's from the eagle tribe. It's going to be sweet. I'm looking forward to it. I'll have to let you know how it goes because we're playing on, actually we're playing today, the day this episode comes out. So that'll be fun.
Nice. Awesome.
But also want to give a shout out to Eggs or Aaron. If you guys ever get into DMing, get you guys a player who can teach you grammar. Get yourself a player who's like what Aaron is to me. I love Aaron. He always brings to after every session. He says, "Here's something you did really well. Here's something I don't think you did very well from a player's perspective." And sometimes he's really right, and other times I can argue my point of view. But I love having that. So shout outs to Nico and Aaron. You guys are awesome. Love just being friends with you guys. So that's my shout outs. Pew!
That was really nice. My wife actually helped me play test a game, so shout out to her. She's pretty dope.
Yeah.
I kind of like her. I think that's why we're married, you know?
Oh.
Yeah. I got down on my knees though, man, and I told her something. I said, "Sweetheart," and I looked her in the eyes when I said this, and she was like tearing up. She knew what was coming.
Oh,
you know what I told her, Rich? You know
no,
what I told her?
What?
Shall we roll?
Oh, and there's the tie-in. I don't know what she said, but Cam, I will always say yes. Always, I will say yes to that question.
Now, if you guys yes to the dress. Here we go.
Yes. Now, if you guys don't know, like we said earlier, what we're going to do is we're going to be rolling on a list of 20 random themes and 20 random scenarios. Some of them actually sent in by listeners. So if you guys have any ideas, feel free to hop on Discord or Reddit and send your suggestions in. So this week, I'm rolling on the themes table, and yes. Cam, you're rolling scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm ready whenever you are.
Let's do this.
Boom. Wow.
Boom.
I got... Okay, what'd you get?
I need to be a player, man. I'm killing these 20s.
Did you get a 20?
Yeah.
I got a 1.
Boom.
Okay.
Oh my God, that really works well together too. Can I point it out?
Ooh, yes, please do.
It is a masquerade party at a wedding.
Ooh, this is going to be interesting. Now, in case you guys didn't know, these rolls are actually brought to you by Libris Arcana Dice. Do you love dice? Because we sure do. So here's the thing, though. Libris Arcana Dice, for all the cheesiness, it's actually like a really sweet company. Now, if you're listening to this show that's built on randomness and creativity that comes from that, you probably are the type of person who loves just getting things randomly and the surprise of what's going to come out of that. Libris Arcana Dice, that's all they do. So here's what you can get. You can either order every month. You'll be sent a random set of 7 dice with an extra bonus dice. Or every 3 months, they will send you a larger package of 3 sets of dice without those bonus dice. Now, if you actually go to their website and you use the promo code FITG for filling in the gaps, you'll get 25% off your first order. So it's either your first month of the monthly delivery or your first order of that larger 3-month delivery, and they'll send you a random nice set of dice every month that you guys can enjoy. They also have some random
really
supplements.
Nice dice.
They're really nice dice. But yeah, if you guys have been trying them out, let us know. We're gonna do a giveaway of some of their dice once we actually get to 25 reviews on iTunes, so make sure you guys are tuning those in. But yeah, check them out. Libris Arcana Dice. LIBRIS arcanadice.com. Cam.
That was fantastic.
Thank you, sir. Just
slam dunk.
But Cam, I have a question for you. So Masquerade, which actually Masquerade's brought to us by Bad Chad. Chad actually had that recommendation, so thank you, Bad Chad. Masquerade wedding. What is in your mind? What pops into your head when you think of Masquerade wedding?
Political intrigue is something that I think I want to explore on this one.
Okay,
for sure.
Okay.
So the beauty of a masquerade party is that there is some sense of deception at all times. Mm-hmm. It also gives your chairs. It also gives your chairs some players
have to be nice
to be sat upon. I guess, or something like that. No, your players get a chance to sort of play around and be a little bit unique with picking out their mask, which I always think is a really, really fun thing to do.
Oh, you have to. Let's just pause. Don't just give them masks. Let your players pick masks, please. Please. Yeah. They'll love it so much. It's a small detail that goes a long way.
Yeah. The wedding side of things is interesting because part of me wants to go like, okay, is it an ally's wedding? Is it a wedding for a more publicized wedding that isn't necessarily an ally or an enemy? Maybe it's a neutral wedding, but there's an exchange happening within this wedding. Is there an attack that's bound to happen that your players are trying to prevent? Is it there's so many little things that go into it, but the cool thing about a wedding is that, and I know this from experience, is that it's very jointed, if that makes sense. And so what I mean by that is that it's broken down into multiple sort of subsections of one specific event, which creates...
so walk us through a few of those subsets.
Well, first and foremost, I put on my dress.
Okay.
And I look great.
I look great. My mom's there. She's braiding my bald hair, and it's just...
She's giving me cornrows, but my hair is only legitimately like maybe a quarter of an inch. So we're having a tough time. It's like, stop pulling that. No. So your weddings are a day-long event, right? They start with the breakfast, and the bride and the groom can't see one another all throughout the day, obviously.
So that could be more of there's no event going on, but the event party is there being set up. You could have your players sneaking around as staff members or moving things around. Yeah. Okay, exactly. So keep going on.
So like the setup of the event happens, and so generally the groom is a part of the setup. He's at least helping, dictate where things are going. Not always, but I paid for my own wedding, so I was definitely going to save where I could. You've got musical setup, you've got the dance floor setup, you've got lights, you've got all these different components to it all. Then you've got the dress up periods before the wedding. You've got the seating of the crowd. You've got the ceremony itself. You have the reception afterwards. You have the different sections of the reception. You've got the cake. You've got the you've got like the dance, the mother-daughter dance. I don't know how well that would translate to D&D. Actually, let your players have their mother-daughter dances, all of them. Or
Aww.
yeah, it'd just be super sweet.
Butterfly kisses.
Just I was
like
gonna say "Daughters" by John Mayer, but you know what? That's fine too. I'm gonna play that over this for sure.
Good.
But yeah, dude, that's what I'm thinking. What are you thinking?
Okay, so I love those. I love those different. I love thinking about it as segments because it lets you not just feel like. I feel like sometimes you can fall into the trap of DMing as just thinking of a wedding as just, it's just a wedding, so it just happens, it goes on. But giving your players the ability to show up and dress up as servants and kind of peek around or be there for like if it's a big medieval wedding, there could be like a pre-party as like these different people are coming in, and you know there's that guy who we have his lordship Regan with the lady, and then he's like calling off people as people are coming in. But one thing I really thought of that could be interesting is and this might be cliche, but you could sometimes cliches are good. You can build a lot of cliches. The idea of having it be a wedding where either the bride or the groom maybe doesn't want to, maybe it's like a forced political wedding, and maybe one of them doesn't want to marry the other. And the players, I think, have to hear every side of the story and help out with that. Maybe they hear from the bride side about how it'd be good for the home country, or the groom side about, you know, maybe the groom is just kind of like a slob and he's not going to get married if he doesn't have an arranged marriage. And
let's actually expand on that. I there's something to that right there, what you just said.
But the other idea too is, what if there's suitors for the additional ones too? Like, what if the guy is in love with somebody else and she's like really lower class, or vice versa, the girl's in love with someone who's really lower class, and since it's a masquerade, you can kind of maybe work as hard as you can to try to get these people together. Like the players are trying to play matchmaker, kind of, or also, you know, as matchmakers trying to happen. Let's say just for ease, I'm going to say the bride doesn't want to marry groom. Bride wants to marry like a servant or something. And that's no secret. So as this masquerade's going on, groom's dad knows that servant's going to be there, and he's trying to like kill him. So you're also secretly like moving this other person around and trying to keep them safe, or keeping, you know, a different mask on them. There's a lot of different things that could happen depending on how your players want to help this wedding or hurt this wedding. Yeah. I'm sorry, I cut you off though. What were you saying?
No, you're fine. It's all good. You have to expand upon your ideas, because if you don't, then you're like, oh, there they go into the ether. Goodbye. So I was thinking about this, and obviously I understand why you go cliche, because it helps to explain the idea. But you could go both ways. I mean, it's gender wise, it doesn't even have to be a guy and a girl. It could be a guy and a guy. It could be two different creatures. It doesn't really matter at that point.
Two dragons.
Yeah, two dragons getting married. Actually, that sounds pretty dope. But
that does actually sound really sweet.
Yeah, kind of want to explore that thing.
We'll come back to that one.
Check. So I was thinking about a forced marriage. I like the idea of forced marriage, not personally, but what I'm saying is, in terms of the storytelling, the forced marriage itself could be removing that person. It's like an extraction mission of sorts for your players. And so, say for example, say this guy is sort of being forced to marry this like vile woman, and she's like sort of one of the three stepsisters from Cinderella, just like awful, selfish, terrible human being, and or whatever they are, and he needs to get away from that, and then you're doing everything you can to essentially remove them from that scenario, if you will. And then it helps you create some follow-up missions afterwards, you know, like what do you do now, or how do you continue to run from them, or what sort of blowback are you dealing with after that. But I thought that would be an interesting way to go about it, because your players aren't exposed until they decide to expose themselves to remove this person. You have the time to set up a plan, but there's still a timer on this mission because the wedding creates that impending I do moment.
Pressure. Yep. You have the different parts of the party happen, and you know that like the wedding is drawing ever near. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what I thought about, because like we had talked about this earlier today. People have said like, "Oh, I'm going to run the Rochester Horror Picture Show tonight," and I was like, "How can you fit that game into one night?" It's like I feel like they all talk like this. They're just like, "Okay, and you're going to." They're all auctioneers.
They're all auctioneers. Yep.
Yeah. So that's what they're doing. But that's what I was saying. Like, I feel like this actually does fit as a single night, scenario, or an event of some sort. You know what I mean?
No, I agree. I think it does sound like something that could happen super... It could wrap up nicely. It doesn't have to linger. Now, Okay, so some other things I was thinking of that could add... Because once we started talking about two dragons getting married, that started getting my what-if hat ticking. And, me and we usually try to take things and make them a little bit fantastic. Because it's D&D. It's got to be fantastic.
Yeah.
Why just have two humans get married when you could have, two dragons get married? So some creatures that could be fun... or some scenarios that can make this thing fun is what would happen if there was a doppelganger thrown into the mix. Maybe the bride and the groom or whatever, maybe one of them's been kidnapped and replaced by a doppelganger for an assassination to make it maybe it's like they're trying to start a civil war. So they want this wedding to happen, and then doppelganger stabs and makes it look like this person did it. So there's one scenario. Even the whole idea of in this medieval fantasy society, maybe it's not a wedding between like a lord and like two lords of a land. Maybe it's a masquerade wedding with like between a bunch of orcs and a small human settlement. And that's just been something they've been doing for centuries. Is there's this wedding that kind of marks a peace treaty where the orcs leave them alone because their orc tribe gets a wife or gets a husband. And maybe the masquerade is
like
more of like
orcs
a shaman
get a human?
Yeah.
That's terrible for them.
Isn't it? But like that would be, if you want your players to show up and just mess things up, that could be where like you could run a wedding like that, where it's obvious this is bad for the wife. But then you could also have with that whole thing of maybe I can't remember what game it was, but there's a game where there's a forced wedding like that happening, and as a player playing this game, I'm like thinking she wants to get out of this. Like she definitely wants to be saved. But when you actually go to save her, man, I wish I remember what game this was. Maybe it wasn't a game, maybe it was a book. Whatever.
Yeah.
When the action of saving happened, this character had said like, no, if through a wedding that I could potentially learn to love a person or learn to enjoy, I can save my people for 100 years, like I would do it. And it was just kind of like
thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then
they give some depth to the character for sure. It's interesting in that regard.
And you have to choose. Is it something where you feel like you're okay letting that person make that decision, or are you going to still try to save them?
Right. Save them from themselves in that moment. Like, now I'm making the decision for you, if you will. Yeah. It really sucks if you're Bill and you draw the raffle ticket to be the husband of a new orc. It's just a bad day, man.
It is a bad day.
Yeah. What are you doing today, Bill? I'm going to go have sex with an orc. Wish me luck.
Half orcs come from somewhere, man. I mean,
what did they come from? Is that a halfling? Is that orc and a human?
Oh no, a half orc.
Oh my God! I'm an idiot. I thought you said halfling. I was like,
a halfling.
I'm not sure if that's how that works, but
even
okay.
like I feel like it's something too if you're writing that scenario, which I don't know if we're going to build that scenario out, just some additional ideas. I think that has to be something where like when the person is born. Because I don't think orcs live that long. Orcs might only live to be like 40 years. But when that kid is born, I feel like it's like the orcs like walk through the tribe and like tattoo the kid's forehead. And they're like, this is the one we're coming back for. And they come back in like 13, 14, 15 years.
And bada boom, bada bing. Time to get married, kiddo. Let's explore. I like the doppelganger.
I like the doppelganger too.
So we're sort of breaking our rules now big time, actually, because we're using a secondary scenario from our list. but I don't care.
We're still going to have a Masquerade, because Doppelganger is just another level on top of Masquerade.
That's true, because it is, in a way, a mask. I like it. You know what? Semantics. That's what I say. Semantics to it all.
And it could make Detect Magic a thing, if Detect Magic works. I'm trying to think here.
Are you talking about Detect Magic in terms of a doppelganger shifting?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if that would count as magic.
It's hard to say, because if it's built into the doppelganger itself, I need to know more about doppelganger specifically to understand that. But if it's built into the doppelganger itself, I don't necessarily know if it's magic. Part of me thinks that it would be more of a part of itself than
that's
it is.
That's how I'm feeling too, is that it wouldn't be magical. Unless you as the DM wanted to make it so that player is like, oh yeah, I can use Detect Magic, but you can do the same thing with like a certain pin that the person wears or anything like that. So, okay, but you were saying with Doppelganger, you like that idea. What do you like about it?
Well, the part that I love about it is that is figuring out the fact that it is in fact Doppelganger. You know, you have a lot of options in terms of how you could sort of lead those blah 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 blah. You know that, all the breadcrumb trails for your players. That's the really fun stuff that I think would be really interesting to sort of play around with, is like, how can I leave these little hints for my players so that they can have a good time with that. But then on top of that, then it's trying to remove this doppelganger in a way that doesn't cause uproar from the people that you're actually trying to save, because they don't know any better. So they're like, get your hands off of my spouse.
Exactly. Well, and you're at this is like a wedding. So you know there's going to be a lot of guards there. It's a masquerade, so it's fancy. And as soon as you go and, I mean, if your players just straight up shoot the person, people are going to be ticked. Like, people are going to be upset that you just killed the princess or the prince or whatever.
Here's the problem with that, is that doppelgangers do revert to their natural form after dying.
Yes. True.
So,
True.
Now my question is, I mean, can you just like, oh, cool, now they're bleeding out. And so like they don't die instantly. And so now people are having to deal with this. And that gives you like a couple minutes, right? So of reaction time before this doppelganger shifts back. And so maybe that's where it could come into play.
True.
Also, and this is something you talked about a long time ago in an episode. You talked about how you had introduced a doppelganger to a game that you had been running, and the player was essentially chasing what they believed could be the doppelganger, and they had a choice of shooting at it, and they chose not to because they realized it was the actual person itself. So
for
if
that,
you have this, go ahead.
Well, okay, so what I did, for those of you guys who weren't there for the story, there was a doppelganger scenario where a doppelganger had taken a player's wife out into the woods, and when you first see this doppelganger, the player rolled high enough insight to know that it wasn't his wife, and he actually shot the doppelganger with an arrow. So what I specifically said, I laid out details. Your arrow pierces into the leg of what you're shooting at, and when the arrow hits, you can see that there's blue blood. So I said two adjectives, leg and blue blood. So the doppelganger runs away. He runs into a clearing, and he sees his wife again. But this time, I say specifically, I said some other things so that he had the option. He paused for a second. He was ready just to attack again because the wife was running at him, like for a hug, like crying. So he's like, I draw my bow. And then like he even like picked up his dice and was about to roll it. And then he was like, I look at her leg. And I said, there's no blood. There's no blue blood. And he like put down his dice. And there was that reunion because the doppelganger wanted the player to live with the guilt of shooting his wife. Because
what if she just killed him? What if she killed him? Like that was her whole backstory. She's like, yeah, I just wanted him dead the whole time.
Yep.
Sorry.
But so if you're doing something like that, make sure you don't just like, well, I guess the players didn't insight check high enough. Like you killed the wrong person. Make sure you give them the opportunities of like blue blood on the leg or injury to the shoulder, something the players can look back on later to know like, okay, I have to remember we injured its hand or we broke its finger. That way they can check for that later on if they remember. If they don't remember, you gave them that chance.
Yeah. And the thing about it is like that does like failure, is such a key component to this game.
Yeah.
That we play. And so if he kills his wife right there, I know this is sort of like an aside from the main episode, but if he kills his wife right there, it's like a super impactful moment. Where
exactly.
It sucks, right? It sucks so much that happened, especially for a player that's like invested heavily in that character or something of that nature. But the reality of it is that you gave him an out, and so you created a logical, reasonable, impactful moment for your player, and they can't be mad at anybody but themselves. There was also like this major win moment for him right there.
Exactly.
As well. So, the way you approach that was a really, really cool way to do it. So heading back to the wedding, when we take into consideration the doppelganger and the absolute sort of insanity that comes with a wedding and the fact that there's a masquerade party going on, all of these things in line lead to your players you as a DM having to put in a lot of detail work, but that detail work can easily pay off for you in the long run.
Oh, yes.
For a lot of those things. So that's go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking so when we've got that doppelganger there, right, and their main motivation is to essentially, let's say, for example, this is a monarchy, right? They're marrying into a monarchy. And that's what you're trying to save. You're saving either a prince or a princess from this doppelganger that is sent by whomever. At this point, it doesn't matter, right?
I like there being a third party that wants to start a civil war.
Okay, so the third party is really important at this point?
Yeah, I like the idea of Faction A and Faction B are finally going to have peace through this wedding. Like, boom. It's like your Romeo and Juliet scenario where like, oh, this is definitely going to fix things over time.
Mm-hmm.
But and Faction C is like, well, if those two get along, then they're going to team up to stop me. So I've got to put an end to this somehow by making it look like husband killed wife. Boom. The factions are fighting more than ever.
Right. Because if it's successful, then it creates a massive rift.
Well, and here's the thing, too. Honestly, with a doppelganger, it doesn't even have to be husband kills wife. It just has to be someone from Faction A kills someone from Faction B.
Oh, and that's a Where's Waldo episode, like nobody's business of figuring out who this guy is.
Yep.
So, let me ask you this. Do doppelgangers carry any specific traits over from their standard form? I mean, obviously, doppelgangers are not normal looking at all at first.
Correct.
But do they carry over maybe like a scar, or do they carry over like little small things, with them at all to their I guess the people that they're becoming?
Nope. It uses polymorph, so it's like it is a straight thing. They just look just like it. Now, I would say, though, like, have something. Especially if it's a wound or if there's blood. Like, that's gotta stick. Like, if you cut its shoulder, I think then when it changes clothes, you could say, like, I want to look at its shoulder. Is there a blood wound there? And it's the whole kind of, like, Peter Parker and Spider-Man 1 meeting the Green Goblin. And he's like, oh, I cut this by a bike messenger. Or that type of scenario, like, oh, I was carrying a box on my shoulder and I got a splinter and it was really bad.
Yeah. It's just a matter of, I want some distinguishing features, or maybe the way they walk, or maybe, what I think would be an easy way for the DM to create a level of continuity for the doppelganger that might be switching in and out of different people, is a cadence to the talk of how they speak.
Ooh, or like a certain thing. Like, not like a lisp, because that might be really easy. But like,
maybe a certain word.
A certain word they say weird. Or like they stutter on like a certain word.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like a code word. Like you're trying to work it into a sentence so that it makes sense.
Yeah, like if they're talking about the wedding and they always go like, they're always like, say for example it's a guard, right? And he's all, hello, welcome to the wedding.
Yes. Yep.
Like that. Something innocuous at first or something like that. It almost could seem like it's just you making the mistake itself. That could be something that they pick up on maybe third or fourth time that this person says the wedding.
Yes, because I do agree. You don't point that out. I think it's just like, and this might be a session where maybe if you're not comfortable doing voices, it might be harder for you to get this across. But if you're someone who's more comfortable having a voice for different characters, have it be different characters, like the rich fancy noble who's enjoying his time at the wedding, or like you said, the guard who's like, I'm having a good time guarding this wedding, and it just sounds different every time. So they hopefully they pick up.
I'm an angry guard.
Mercy.
Why is everybody getting married all around here? See, I'm just a lonely guard. That's my name, Lonely Guard.
Lonely Guard 1. But yeah, something like that. I think that's a great idea. I personally love that.
Yeah. Well, see, in that way, then when you have been, sort of informed by Group A that there is going to be a doppelganger, we need to figure them out. We need to keep this on the hush because they're trying to initiate something. We can't have war right now. X, B, B, whatever, who cares at that point, what their motivation is, but that's why that they're telling you that. And so then that just provides you an easier path to sort of laying out the breadcrumbs as I've talked about multiple times today.
Another thing too is to keep your players just from being like, I think this is a doppelganger. Yeah, I just stab him. I stab him right here in the middle of the party. What you could do is have the king or whoever's hiring you say, or have someone say, like, I don't want anything messy happening in front of other people. Like, because if it does, this wedding isn't just a happy celebration. Like, the other nobles here are going to hold what happens at this wedding against our country. It's either going to be like something that for the next 10 years, people are like, oh yeah, that country, they throw a good party. They're really hospitable. I want to do deals with them. Or it's going to be something for the next 10 years where people are like, oh yeah, they couldn't even keep civility at a wedding.
Okay.
Like, I don't want to deal that way.
It's a pride thing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it keeps your players just from being like, oh, I mean, I know we're just in the middle of like the father-daughter dance, but I'm just going to go up there and sneak attack.
Yeah. That's no, that they're doing the father-daughter dance. They're like, I rolled to charm the entire crowd to be dad. I'm dad now.
Yep, I am dad. Natural 20.
Guess what? Roll for dad. Roll for rolled up jean shorts and some white socks and New Balances. Let's see how this thing plays out.
Yeah. But
so
no, like,
what about an end though to it? Like, so we don't have we have a good murky middle, right? Like that's. Yeah. Do you feel about that?
I feel like the middle. There's enough there that we can grab onto it.
So when we also have sort of a good beginning then too, because we have Party C that wants to create civil war.
Yep. So you get hired or you are made aware of Party C. It could even be like, honestly, if you're on your way to a town, just have your players get attacked by bandits. And as you are attacked by bandits, have them like look over some of the notes and boom, quest line. Hey, we got hired by Party C to cause extra trouble outside of the walls so that there aren't as many guards at the wedding so that they can take care of assassinating this person.
Gotcha.
And you're like, oh, hey, king, I found out that there's an assassination plot at the wedding, and then the king can bring you in on it. Like, okay, well, actually, yeah, we've heard that this is going on. We could use your help. I don't know. That could be one way of hooking people in.
He'd be like, all spies have already informed of this or this, and so on and so forth.
And it's the whole scenario, too, with that, where it's like, and no one here, you're not from this town, so no one's going to suspect you. Yeah, pick one of these masks, pick one of these costumes, please. Like, if you can do this, I'll help you out. Whatever.
Mm-hmm. So the Masquerade side of things, let's explore that a little bit. What types of, I guess, scenarios could you incorporate? I actually ran a Masquerade game here recently that went rather well because it did well to hide who was beneath the mask, and I guess that's the purpose of it all, but more or less sort of the overall shame of the entire crowd itself. Could you sort of plant maybe story seeds for other scenarios in this crowd of people, or in this masquerade? Maybe start to set up things for yourself in other areas of your games too.
Yeah. No, I
we
think
never
for
haven't
sure.
really talked about that, and so I always thought that would be an interesting thing to do. Would be like, how can we plant seeds? How can we make sure that we're doing our best not to railroad our guys?
Yeah.
Or gals.
No, I like the idea. So when you say that, the instantly one thing that pops to my mind is an episode of Firefly, where Malcolm Reynolds and the squad are going to a gala of sorts to get a job that makes them a lot of money. But when they go there, they don't fit in, and they end up having to, Malcolm gets into a duel with somebody, and that during the party impresses this guy enough to be like, okay, yeah, I'll do business with you. I think you could definitely have stuff like that where your players are, rubbing shoulders with some people and hearing about things. I mean, it's a masquerade, so I think you have to have... I think, whereas normally we as DMs... this isn't everybody, but I know for me, most of my time is spent firsthand crafting combat and then crafting cities and like city encounters. I think this flips, where you're almost looking like you would treat combat with like, how can I do this and how can I have that twist? You have to apply it to like social standings. Like for instance, one thing I would do during a masquerade type scenario is where normally you might just let your players walk around wherever. I honestly would treat it like initiative. Like have your characters roll social initiative and give them their movement speed and have them say, okay, where are you guys going to go and walk and talk? And then have certain players that move around on their turn and have this big map with crowds of people. That way they could even like, okay, this one's supposedly the doppelganger, but on its turn, it's going to go back behind this closed door and you don't know where he's at anymore. It's going to, if you could run straight there, but then that's going to cause a ruckus. So how are you going to, you could try to sneak around here and stealth through the kitchen window and give them that, bring the parts of combat that make every choice feel intentional to the social structure. Not every time, but I think in this instance, it could be really cool. Yeah.
The other thing that's interesting is you can run this campaign or this scenario pretty early on for players too. Being that's a challenge rating 3, they've got the doppelganger could be sort of like a blitz type of character where you're, say for example, one of your players isolates themselves in a hallway by themselves, ambusher. One of the skills from the doppelganger could be easily used, surprise attacks, so on and so forth. Those are things that keep your players on their toes, and so it's incorporating both this initiative idea is amazing. I love that, but it's incorporating both the initiative and for combat and for dialogue and for role playing. This is a heavy role playing mission, though.
I think it is.
I would say.
Well, I think that's what will help with bringing combat rules to it. Is whereas some players are just like naturally inclined to role play. I think this will help people who normally only do combat know, like, okay, you have your turn, you have an action, you have your movement, and he's like, I'm gonna walk up to the party of people drinking, and I'm gonna buy everyone a drink, and you're like, awesome, cool, you get some extra information, or no one like notices you, and so some other people behind you are talking extra loud, and you overhear this, or just stuff like that.
And I always like to, if you have a player that doesn't necessarily like to role play, or they don't know how to, I like to talk to them without even prompting it. I don't even like to say this character says. I will legitimately talk to them in the voice, right? Now, I know not everyone likes doing voices, but I will legitimately, as they walk up, they'll say, I will go up and talk to this grouping right over here. And then I'll be like, isn't this party marvelous, darling? And it'll throw them on their side for a second, especially if they're not used to role playing. But then even if they're not doing a character voice, they're talking as their character back to you, and it's drawing out this role playing motive. And then they start to have a conversation, and then they start to do things and say things without actually even saying like, I deceived you. They actually just try to deceive you by their actual words, and it creates a lot of fun from that perspective. I think this is a really cool episode to do a lot of fun experiments with
and
role-playing.
Stuff.
Yeah, all the things and the stuff and the yeah, it's funny how I'm like sitting here talking about role playing and speaking and communicating, and then I'm like, yeah, it's a fun episode to do words and all the stuff you do with them.
Okay, so let's do this real quick. Let's go back into the middle, because I think our beginning is okay. But I'd like to hear. So thinking of this from a combat scenario, let's fill this party with some stuff. Let's put some people, some NPCs, some groups, some encounters into this party. I know. For me, I think if you're doing a masquerade, one thing that could add to a tactical map is like some like terraces or multiple levels or bushes or plants that cut off line of sight, or hanging cloths or banners or even columns that players or creatures or NPCs can duck behind. Lots of rooms, servant corridors that you can try to sneak through. Play Hitman. Play an episode of Hitman. For any
you need about seven dumpsters to put a bunch of bodies. And,
But so thinking through that, what are some things you see in the midst of this masquerade or party or wedding that could happen? I think especially if you're there for breakfast or setup, you've got this whole scenario with like, you could dress up as a servant, or there could be a huge pastry or cake that's getting made. There could be, I don't know.
What about?
Do you think?
Are you talking about like combat specific stuff, or what is it?
Not even combats, just things that as your players are moving through the party that could happen, that draw their attention away, or that they could use to their advantage.
Yeah, it could be. The band could start playing.
Yes. Gotta do that.
Yeah. And make it the Star Wars band. I don't know why I thought of that. I just thought it'd be really funny. But you could have the band start playing, and that could cause sort of like a distraction. Maybe like a very popular song like the D&D Macarena comes on, and the dance floor becomes filled, and so then you're trying to sort of deal with that.
Dance your way through the crowd to get to the doppelganger, or to get to the prince or princess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And maybe you see that could be a point where that could be like a good crescendo, where you start to see it's definitely like a 90s action movie where the antagonist and protagonist are making their way across the dance floor, but nobody can do anything because they don't want to cause a ruckus.
Yep.
And they're staring at each other, and they keep making eye contact until they finally just start going at it. But that could be one really cool one to do. I think the reception, or not the reception, the actual I can't think of the word, and I've actually done this in my life before.
Ceremony?
The ceremony.
Yeah.
Yep. The ceremony could be a cool thing as well, because then you could do some speeches, and maybe some certain speeches start to sort of confuse people. Maybe the shapeshifter is acting as the doppelganger is acting as the bride, and then starts to sort of speak out. No, I guess she wouldn't actually do that, because she wouldn't want to expose the fact that it was Party C. Never mind. I take that back.
You know what? I kind of
rewind.
I think it would be nice, though, if you don't... Because the more I'm thinking about this, having there be just a doppelganger, it makes for a masquerade, for a wedding, for this scenario, it makes the villain too easy to know right off the bat. So, like one thing I'm thinking of is that you lose with the whole having it just be a doppelganger. Is like you lose the opportunity of one of your players being like, okay, to gather information, I'm just going to kind of wait outside on a terrace and get into a spot where no one can see me, but I can listen to people. And then eventually you say that, okay, after 20 minutes, 2 people walk out, or one person walks out and stands there, and then somebody else walks up to him and says, this wedding is beautiful, but it's getting a little hot. And then after that, the 2 of them start talking about, like, do you know where the doppelganger's at? Do you know where the assassin's at? It's like a code word. And that player then can go up to other people and use that code phrase.
I gotcha.
Or like, another player
really like that.
Is getting into like a gambling session.
You could still have doppelgangers, but you could do maybe multiple doppelgangers. And they could be like sort of like a group of assassins, right?
Yeah, I like that. I think that one thing that could kind of shoot yourself in the foot is if you say right off the bat it's doppelgangers. I think what could sound awesome is that there's an assassin, and then at the wedding you find out the assassin's a doppelganger, and then you have to find out from that faction C that's there, because they wouldn't be so rude as to not attend the wedding. And the king
Right.
wouldn't be so rude as to not invite them. But then you're trying to figure out from this faction C through like getting one person crazy drunk so he lets something slip, or listening on a terrace, or someone gets seduced and you find a certain code word or a medallion on him or something. That's when you find out, oh shoot, it's a doppelganger, and the last mask he was seen wearing was this. We have to find a guy wearing this mask.
Yeah, I think that's a big component, because doppelgangers don't actually shift clothes at all whenever they shift. So that's actually that plays into it. So yeah, beforehand, it's an assassin. We don't know who, we don't know where, we don't know what, but it is. Then when you get there, start hearing people say the code words. Oh, look at that, blah blah blah. Wildflowers taste good in the middle of August. Oh, that's a code word. Let's talk about this over here. Yep. And then they just start discussing the fact that it's a doppelganger. Then your players start using those code words. They start isolating and locating who it could be, start to narrow it down. Maybe keep some of the descriptions ambiguous so that they have to sort of form together to create one person.
Yep.
Maybe one guy has one part of the description, but two parts are the other thing. So it's sort of like Guess Who, the actual board game. You know what I'm talking about?
What? Okay, so what if with this, with the whole guess, I love that. What if with the information they're finding out piece after piece, it's a masquerade. So maybe one person, one of your players got this member of Faction C so drunk that he's talking liberally. And he's just like, well, don't worry, my friend. Soon our scaly friend will be able to take care of this once and for all. And now you're like, okay, he said scaly, someone wearing a mask of a creature with scales, gotta find out. So now it's like, okay, we've got these two people wearing fish masks, we've got this guy wearing a snake mask, we've got this guy wearing a dragon mask.
So you're sort of taking inventory of the people and you're flapping down the it's Guess Who. That's amazing.
It's literally Guess Who. Yep, it's literally just Guess Who.
Hey, I want to take you to the side over here for a second. Do you play Guess Who, but like a really messed up version of it? Like, hey, this person might or might not be homeless, or something like that.
Yes. Is that bad? It's Guess Who, but you don't.
Oh, it's definitely
you just
bad.
make assumptions about people's characters.
Yeah, it's
like,
definitely bad.
This person listens to a lot of like indie folk pop radio, and you're like, oh, exactly. Okay, yep.
They've got a fishing pole, and they are also wearing I can't remember the hat, like a bowler. Like,
I know exactly.
You look like you live in Austin. Yeah,
Yep.
Pretty much. No, I definitely have fun with it.
That's the best way to play it.
Of course. So yeah, okay. That actually, I think, is like the best refined way that the story could sort of play itself out. Is that you have this like elimination of certain targets. You have the definite potential fear of if your players make the wrong decision, which is a really, really fun thing for you as the DM. Because if you sit there and they're walking up, they're like, that's him, and it's definitely not him or her or whomever. It's definitely going to be an exciting moment for you as a DM, because now it's what do you do if they do kill the wrong person?
And the other thing too is
escape mission.
You gotta also, you don't want to cause too much ruckus. So once you figure out who the assassin or the doppelganger is, you then have to lure them or catch them in a spot where you're able to fight them without making too much ruckus, which then maybe includes one of your players getting close enough to the bride and groom to be like, hey, your life is in danger. I need you to give me your clothes. And they're like, what? Excuse me? What? You're trying to take my to-be wife's clothes? And that's just another thing that you could, I don't know, do to try to lure them away.
Hey, you're not supposed to see her, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Get out of here, man. It's bad luck. Anyways, lady, need your clothes. Like right now. Saving your life. Don't ask questions.
Just give them here. But that could be, so some cool scenarios where maybe you could run into or give your players the opportunity to find information, especially going with what you said earlier of like the setup time, the pre-party time, the ceremony time of the weddings is during a breakfast or setup. You could just be in town talking to people. I think the king for sure says, we think it's someone from Faction C, and there's some distinguishing thing like their flag or their insignia is a snake or this crest. That way your players can look for these people to at least give them that bit of, these are the people I should spy on. But I think during setup, it could be you gambling in the tavern with one of them, or it could be you underneath one of their windows, like listening.
No. It's not any of those things, Rich.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Ooh.
You are 100% wrong.
Oh.
You know what it is?
What?
It's a bachelor or bachelorette party.
Oh my god!
You have to do a bachelor party or a bachelorette party.
Dude, that would be, if you want to elongate the day, I think that's perfect. Because at some point, this doppelganger has to get close to people, or this assassin has to get close to people. So I think that just makes sense where you'd have to... And even if it's not a bachelor party that happens before the wedding, what if you just add that into part of the wedding? Like, because weddings in medieval eras were not just a day thing. They could last for,
Weeks.
a week. So that could even just be part of the wedding celebration, is the archery contest where the groom and all of his... closest friends go out and they're shooting bow and arrow.
That's the beautiful thing about weddings in this fantasy setting, is that they do provide you more time, if need be. So that's always definitely a really nice thing. Now, I just thought about the bachelor or bachelorette party, or that type of pre-party for a wedding. The reason why I found that interesting is because that's where intel gathering could happen.
Oh, yeah.
And you could still introduce, fights and things and combat in that world as well, considering that most great decisions are made after drinking, said no one ever. So if your players are drinking and having a good time, maybe their inhibitions are lower and they want to get into it with somebody, even if it's just role playing from that perspective. I just find that really funny, considering I've been through a bachelor party. They can be a little bit wild, and so
So what if this too, something you could do with the masquerade party or with the bachelorette party, is you could have, for either bachelorette or bachelor, you could have one of your players show up as like a dancer or entertainment, or maybe the princess or some of the bachelorettes, the bridesmaids or whatever, are like getting all up on your player, and now it's like, oh shoot, I don't want to like mess up this wedding. It's just another little fun thing you could do. But I think that's great.
I do like the idea of like maybe one of your bigger, burlier players coming in as the dancer for the bachelorette party. Yeah, and they're like, "Oh, here he comes!" And then he's like,
and it has to happen on accident. Like,
it has to be like he's just in the wrong room.
Like he's following who he thinks is the doppelganger, and he goes into the room, and it's just like, "Oh, here's the entertainment!" And like the music just starts playing, and he's like,
He tries to leave, and they're like, no, you're not going to go anywhere, mister.
Exactly. They close the door.
And then it just cuts to him a little later on, and they're like, what happened in there? I don't want to talk about it.
Where'd you make that gold from? I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, man. I'm going to be sneezing, what are they, sparkles, or what is it? Dang
glitter.
It. What is
glitter.
It? Glitter. Oh,
yep.
Man. How did I mess that up?
That's okay.
It's because I don't frequent those establishments.
I think not anymore. But I think that, so I think that like a bachelorette party is a great idea. I think dancing, because you could have, this. You find out that one of the people from Faction C, it's this Baron, and she's a huge flirt, and she has it out for one of your players. So your players, like, because no one recognizes your players. That's one of the advantages of why the king hired you. So during this dance, you're trying as much as you can to get close to the baronet and press her with dancing, so that you can then ask her to dance and get information from her. Or an eating contest, or gambling. There's got to be gambling there. Or maybe even just straight up dueling. I don't know, just different scenarios where your players can be rewarded for doing these social interactions with our fine scaly friend, or our water-breathing friend, or our friend with wings, whatever.
It's really cool because this rewards you as the DM in a fun roundabout way. As always in D&D and any kind of tabletop role playing game, combat is sort of assumed. You're always going to have those opportunities, but role playing opportunities are harder to come by, especially natural ones. And so what I've always found is that if you want to increase the amount of role playing in the games that is happening, like that you're running and stuff like that, what you should do is provide positive incentives for role playing to happen. And so when they do positive moments like what you were just talking about, then those benefits start to show themselves instantaneously. That gratification happens right away, and your players go, oh, this is really nice. This is another way for me to quote unquote win.
Yep.
And they feel great for that. And so I think that's always a great way to go about it as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And I think if you wanted to have some more combat-y type things, you could still throw those moments in where maybe you catch the doppelganger on like the roof. I think the doppelganger, you can get into fights with him, especially with lower level parties. You can get into a few fights with him, but remember, he's going to try to deal damage, but he's not the type of enemy who wants to stick around. No. Like, he wants to run back away and change form again. So I think if you wanted to, you could even have this hallway combat where he drops a chandelier on you guys, or where you, like, you know, get a shot off on him and then he bolts into a crowd and disappears. Or you have scenarios where he's up on the roof and he has the bride or groom and he's got them kidnapped and now you have to figure out how you're going to get out of this. Or there are situations for you to have stuff like that happening.
It's a lot of fun. You know what I really enjoy?
Hedge garden too. Sorry, go ahead.
A hedge guard? What is a hedge guard?
Oh, like a hedge garden. Like somewhere outside where like it's like the hedges create like a maze, like a hedge maze.
Oh, I got you. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. I thought there was like a D&D character I didn't know about. Like, it's like his name is Hedgeguard and he's just a Hedgeguard. He's a guard. He's a really, really short gnome guard that always has a bush, like a guile suit that's a bush. Just like a squared off hedge, you know what I mean?
That would be awesome.
And with arms sticking out both sides and leg out of the bottom, and he's all, and then he pulls the leaves out front of his face, and he's all, "Hey everybody, it's me, Hedgeguard."
Hedgeguard.
Like that.
But yeah, like a hedge maze, you could have combat in a hedge maze, where like you're tracking the doppelganger in there, and then there's more like combats that pop out, like people know that you're up to no good, so they try. Ooh. Okay, so. Sorry, hedge mage.
You got something new?
Well, this could be a scenario to have combat to satiate that, while also giving your players a reward they can use back in the party. So you're tracking this doppelganger, or this person's like you've seduced this baronet, and she's like, "Why don't you follow me into the hedge maze? You know, Bat's eyes." You follow her in there, and you get jumped by people from Faction C with swords, and they're trying to kill you. You don't have your armor on, so it's a tough fight. And they're hopping in and out of the hedges, so you kind of have to like keep them in one spot. However, after you kill them, you then have whatever pieces of clothing that you didn't like damage with blood or with your swords or weapons. You now have Faction C's like insignias or things like that, so that you can kind of even blend in even better for a few of your players back in the party. But I'm sorry.
I like it. No, I just thought it was. I think you and I have a very similar mindset on what this place looks like.
Yeah,
it's nighttime, and for me right now, like as I'm picturing, it's nighttime. It's like large stone columns.
Yep.
Big, beautiful draperies all over the place, red and golds and things like that.
Like some terracotta walls.
Yeah. It's almost like Greek inspired.
Yes. Yep.
Is how I sort of view this wedding right now. It actually reminds me of a scene from The Dark Knight while they're eating dinner, and she lifts up this little piece of paper and asks Harvey Dent if he's the Batman. If you look at the background, that's actually sort of what it looks like to me.
Yes. So. Nope. I'm thinking the same thing.
Okay, there we go. Yeah.
And like, the idea. I like the idea of having 2 levels too, like little back servant corridors that are out of the way and like hidden, but your players can use to get around.
This is like a wealthy establishment. This is like a wealthy location that you're at.
Like multiple patios, or like not even patios. Porches where then like if no one's out there, you could like climb up some vines to get to the second level with no one
like
noticing.
a lattice, climbing up a lattice or something like that.
Lattice. Yeah. Yep.
Which is also a character as well. Hedgeguard and Lattice. We're going to be doing a spin-off series called The Garden Gnomes, and that's just it's a bunch of gnomes having a bunch of battles in the gardens, and they're all made out of gardening equipment stuff. So
now
can't wait for y'all to see that one.
Let's do this real quick. So we've talked a lot about this doppelganger wedding. We've talked a little bit about an orc wedding. Is there anything else at all, just through thinking, just wrapping it up a little bit, where you're like, but here's a big what if, or here's an idea that takes us in a completely different direction. For instance, going back to the dragon wedding. Is there anything else that you've been thinking of that could be like, just in wrap-up thoughts?
I thought of a wedding between 2 nations.
Like 2 actual nations?
Uh-huh. And I guess it's sort of like the way that they thought about it was the only way that we could create a long-lasting bond is to create a wedding of sorts, like a celebration of our unification.
That could be cool.
I didn't know how much, because obviously most of the time when you think wedding, it's like
you think people.
I don't know. I wanted to add like a little bit of flair to
I like that.
the unification of a country, and so that was like that was the best way I could think about it. Well, the ideas aren't that great.
Now, I was actually listening to a video earlier today that went over something from, I think it was Japanese lore ? And it was a two deities who were married who both messed up so bad they got kicked out of, they got kicked out from being gods. Essentially, they became mortal, but they found enough of this elixir to make one of them gods again, and they decided not to drink it. And there was some other stuff with that story, but what if this wedding is between a mortal and a god? And maybe this whole faction that's there too is they're there because this mortal is going to drink this certain elixir to turn them into a god, and obviously if that's going on, people are going to want that kind of power. So that could be something. Even with like dragons, I like the idea of like a polymorphed dragon being there, and people being like, "Oh, it's Eve. Dragons are evil. We have to kill them."
Yeah, I actually love that amazingly. I think I have an idea, but we'll talk about this offline in regards to that.
Ooh.
Yes, because something special for that. But
Ooh.
yeah, that sounds pretty awesome. That definitely sounds pretty awesome for sure. That sounds like pretty cool. So,
whoa, dude.
Whoa, what are you doing there? Hey, speaking of being pretty cool, guess what? The coolest guy on earth, it's his turn to do a synopsis this week.
Oh, is it my turn?
Well, I thought I was talking about me, but no, it is your turn. I'm just joking. But
all right, well, buckle up,
you're the coolest
people.
guy in the world, so whatever.
Aww. Okay, well, let me buckle in real quick. So you've each selected
on,
and
don't make me turn around again. I'll stop this car.
Mirrors are in the right way. Okay, here we go. So your party walks in, pushing the giant doors open as servants take your coats. You each are donning a different mask: one of a lion, a snake, a fish, a hyena, and lastly, a dragon. You know your target, or you don't know your target, but you know where to start looking. Faction C has people all throughout this party wearing the snake insignia. One of you walks over and immediately begins seducing someone at the bar, while another just starts getting sloshed and getting chummy with some people over by a different part of the tavern. Dances, music. As the party goes on for days, you get yourself closer and closer to finding out both who the doppelganger is and when the assassination will take place. Then, the moment gets ever clearer. You see your opportunity. You're alone, isolated, with the doppelganger. But can you be sure that it's who you think it is?
Bum bum bum. It's your dad.
Dude, I feel like through this whole session, please, if you use this session at all, just have Scooby-Doo music ready. just have it bump bump like Scoops. Dude, that'd just be so good. Or at least have 5 NPCs there who, like, one NPC is wearing an elaborate white white coat. The other's wearing orange. The other's wearing pink. One's wearing green.
And there seems to be a dog there. And he speaks like a human. Ruh-roh.
Ruh-roh. That would be sweet. Oh, gosh. That'd be sweet
if
you have that
crushed by a chandelier.
That'd be sweet if you have those people be Faction C. If you have Fred, Velma, Daphne, and Shaggy be Faction C.
Oh, no. That's terrible.
They're from the organization Mr. Ramus Machinists.
Yeah, your players are like, wait a second. Is the other faction Scooby-Doo? No.
They're Dossie Scoob.
I would never plagiarize.
Dossie, it would be Scossie Doob.
Yeah, I think y'all, and I'm speaking to you listeners, so listen up. I think y'all will be excited for this idea that I have. But you'll have to wait until next time to find out what I'm talking about.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'll keep it nice and saucy.
Cool.
But with that being said, though, that was a fantastic episode. I really enjoyed that one quite a bit. As you always know, you can follow us on our social media pages. Twitter, we have an Instagram, we have our subreddit, we have an Imager, I believe. I don't know if you need to follow us on that one, but
got Discord.
You can go follow. Yeah, you can go hit us up on our Discord. All of those places right there give you access to pretty much anything that you want to do in terms of talking about D&D, talking about storytelling, learning about more ideas based around our episodes, just giving us more ideas and things like that to talk about as well. So
and having a community where you can bounce around your own ideas. That's one thing I've been loving to see the people say, I have this idea. Will this work? And our people are pretty nice.
Yeah. We got our people will get with your people and they'll make something happen, if you know what I'm talking about.
Know what you're talking about. But no, guys, thanks so much thanks for listening in. Another awesome episode. If you guys have any suggestions, please send them in. Mad Dog, thanks again for the Masquerade idea. And Liber Arcana, thanks again for sponsoring this episode. We will be seeing you guys next Monday.